and you will benefit it greatly. Before we start, I would like to remind that this is going to be a recorded session, and I would like to ask if there are any objections. Are there any objections? We are going to record the session. Okay, thank you very much. No objections. Before we continue with our great speakers, I would like to remind that first we will listen to Jabi and Danya. And for the last 15 or 20 minutes, we will be focusing on the questions. So you can just ask your questions through the Slido link. The Slido link and the code is on chat. You can reach the Slido link on chat. Okay, you can just send your questions through the link. So I have been a member of RestartLab for the last 10 months, and after 2 months we are going to have our anniversary. We are going to complete our first year as RestartLabers. Before we start, actually, let me brief you about what we have done so far as a RestartLab. RestartLab is actually a cross-industry think tank organization, and we are trying to redefine the concept of workplace. So we are questioning the traditional way, and we really believe in the self-managing organizations. We believe that this is good for the all of the employees, the self-managing employees. This way, the people get more engaged and more happy, and for a better future. I think self-organized, self-managed organizations are essential. And as a RestartLab, we focus on I can summarize our focus areas under 3 topics. The first one is we have co-creation sessions. So we bring together the different people from the different industries, from the different fields, and we try to co-create together. Second, as I have mentioned, we try to question the traditional way of doing things. And the third one is actually we are introducing you to our inspirational speakers. And today we have 2 really very different-minded special guests, Jabi and Danya. Welcome, Jabi, Danya. How are you?
Very good.
Great. Thank you for having us, and happy birthday.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Yes, today is my birthday. Thank you.
Really? I was saying RestartLab because you were saying it's 1 year, but that's amazing.
Oh, yes. By the way, today is my birthday, 28th.
Coincidence. I'm
Happy birthday.
Okay, great. We are going to have our anniversary after 2 months. Yes. Okay. So the stage is yours, Jabi and Danya. So we are looking forward to your great views, thoughts, and ideas. So please.
Sure. Okay, before we get into the details of this new style of organizing and what it could look like, or what it looks like for the organizations that we have worked with, we wanted to do a bit of a check-in using Mentimeter to just kind of get a feel for where we are today and how we are landing. So hopefully you can all see the screen now. So I don't know if you're used to using this, but if you can go maybe on your mobile phone or on your computer to menti.com, you're going to see a login number here, 55663214. You can type it in, and then it will let you participate in an interactive way. And what we're going to do is a bit of a check-in and a warm-up into the topic that brings us here today. So the first question is, how are you feeling today? And this normally we always try in our meetings to do this, to bring a bit of presence, right, into the meeting room, get a chance for people to land, and also get a bit of a acknowledgement, right, on where we are, because the state of mind where we are might interfere with the meeting, so it's good to be aware of it. And sometimes we need to be a bit understanding, right, depending on the energy. It's also good for self-managed teams to be conscious of their energy. We no longer rely on the energy of one person, the boss, to drive everything. We actually all contribute to it. And we become a lot more influential on the energy and the mood of the team. So we need to be very aware on the energy that we're bringing into our team, because it's contagious, right? And learn, one of the things that self-managed teams need to do is regulate the energy. You see here, we have some positive ones and some negative ones, okay? So curiosity, thankful, calm, inspired, appreciative, those are positive energies. But tired, irritated, impatient, those are not so positive, right? So we need to be aware that there's a bit of tiredness, there's a bit of irritation or impatience. Maybe let's just move on to the next one, right? For those that are impatient. So, and to understand a little bit who you are, what role best describes you at work? Okay, so we see a lot of people like us: consultant, coach, facilitator, team member, manager. Okay. All right, so we have a lot of coaches and facilitators, one owner, CEO. So, I mean, a lot of the leadership skills of the future, right, are in coaching and facilitation. So you are the agents of change. Of course, we need the owners and the CEOs to also be the ones that offer those spaces, right, for us to support them in this sort of changes or implementations. And hopefully we could talk a little bit about what you could do if you're a team member or a manager in an organization, because there's always a chance to influence regardless of what our role is, right? So there's always things that you could do to be agents of change. Okay, so, and a bit about how much do you know about NER? NER means Nuevo Estilo de Relaciones, which means in English, new style of relations, which is basically the core of the sort of changes or transformations that we do. We call it a new operating system that is based in new way of relating with each other. So how much do you know about NER? How much do you know about teal? The teal concept from Frederic Laloux, from his book Reinventing Organizations. And also at work in your organization, how trusting the environment is, how much freedom, how much autonomy. I see nobody's voting. Is there a problem with the voting?
Yeah, says it's closed.
Yes,
I might have now it's open, sorry. My mouse went too fast. All right, so not a lot about NER, good, this is why we're here. But we do know more about teal. And it seems like you are all quite lucky that you work already in quite a free environment. Okay, good. Excellent. This might be a bit of a redundant question, but if so many of you know about teal and the different stages, evolutionary stages of organization that Frederic Laloux talks in his book, there's colors to them. there's the impulsive organizations and kind of the breakthroughs that accompany them, which is silos and top-down hierarchies, the traditional achievement. Which one resembles where you work, right? The achievement ones are meritocracies. Then there's the pluralist, where we look for consensus. And then there's the what he calls the evolutionary ones, which is what we would say is that new paradigm, right? There's a big jump between the pluralist and the evolutionary. And you kind of need to go through all these stages. So interesting. We're at all stages. And some lucky ones are already at the forefront of these evolutionary organizations that operate with wholeness and self-management and purpose, right? So that's great. All right, and moving on. No bosses in an organization. What arises in you? What sort of feeling? Pick one or two. I imagine if we ask the RestartLab team, they're all going to be very excited about it. I don't see I wonder why I'm not seeing the, are you voting? You're voting, but it doesn't show
I think it's closed again.
No, it's open.
Okay.
Now it's showing. All right, so lots of excitement and lots of curiosity, a bit of anxiety, a bit of skepticism, and these are all normal and typical reactions to it. But clearly here we are preaching to the converted, Javi, because most people are very curious and excited about it. Okay, so let's move on, and I'm going to share now another screen, and let's talk to you a little bit then about this new style of relations. Can you see my screen? The basics of NER presentation? Yeah, great.
Yes.
Great. So we also believe, like RestartLab, that the current way of doing business doesn't serve us as humans, and is not serving the planet either. We think these traditional ways of management that are based on extreme centralized power are actually inefficient, but also detrimental to human development. So they actually become a stopper in our flourishing, right? So we need to find new ways of operating that help us flourish, that help us achieve our full potential. Okay, these ones don't. And we can all make a difference in supporting this transition. So all of you can be those agents of change, right? The question is, are you ready? And the good thing is that these organizations that operate in this new paradigm, actually through radical empowerment, through trust, through extreme transparency, they actually flourish, but they make money. They are more successful, judged by the traditional ways that we would measure success in a traditional organization. So it's a win-win situation, but it could be a bit scary because we are defying the traditional ways of operating that have been ingrained in us since we are very little, since school. So the question is, are you ready? Are you ready to unlock the true potential and drive positive impact in the world? Hopefully, after this chat, you'll all be. There's a lot of large organizations that already operate like this. You probably, if you read the Frederic Laloux book, you've heard of Burzorg, Morningstar, and Patagonia. But there's also Haier in China, a huge conglomerate of 70,000 employees in the appliances sector. Semco Partners in Brazil. The owner wrote Maverick, a very famous book as well in the self-managed world prior to the Frederic Laloux book. And Idizar, as I mentioned before, this is the bus manufacturing company that Koldo, the founder of K2K, actually turned around when it was on the verge of bankruptcy, and by introducing this new way of relating, which he called the NER style, he actually turned around. So it's possible. And K2K which is a consultancy that Koldo founded after leaving Irizar, after 15 years in Irizar, to help organizations transform into this new way, has actually, I mean, it's been operating for the past 15 years. Javi here, who's with us, is a veteran. He was the first one to lead with Koldo the first implementation in a company called Lancor in the Basque Country. And they have, after many of them, they have quite a unique track record. We're hoping that in the future, it's not going to be the only ones with this track record. We want many companies like K2K supporting organizations in this transformation. But it's an interesting track record, so we can talk a little bit about what they do, how they do it, right? We've done over 100 organizations so far. And what's interesting is that in terms of results, sales double, profits triple after 2 to 3 years, which is remarkable. So by traditional standards, the companies become more productive, they grow, but at the same time, salaries are increased. The differential between who earns the least and who earns the most gets squeezed. And actually profits are shared, and people typically that operate and work in these organizations are 30 to 40% more than the national average. So quite remarkable. How? Why? How is this done? Well, it's because it taps into the collective power. It's because no longer the responsibility rests on the shoulders of a few that have to provide all the answers and solutions. Actually, it's distributed, and then there's an enormous power that comes from the collective, from the whole group. Okay, how do we tap into that power? How do we get this collective intelligence going? Well, the first one is with radical transparency. Transparency is one of the core values because you need transparency to build trust, right? Everybody, and when we say radical transparency, it's because it's radical, even though it's a simple concept, but we're talking transparency about salaries, about finances, about everything, right? And it's things that are perceived as scary, risky to show everything to everybody. But actually, only if you do that, you'll have true trust from people. Javi uses this metaphor that I think is quite funny, which is if you tell your wife that she will know where your whereabouts every day of the week except Sundays, she wouldn't trust you, even though all the days of the week you're telling your wife where you are, right? So transparency needs to be all the way. Also, generosity and long-term vision. So one of the diseases, I think, of the current paradigm is this short-termist, speculative approach that looks to suck all the profits and maximize as much as possible the immediate profits, right, at the detriment of the purpose and the longevity of the organization. And also this generosity that needs to come up front, because another way to building trust is showing this up front by looking at salaries, by looking at how we share profit, right? So very, very important long-term vision, generosity. And of course, then there comes the freedom and the responsibility, which are the two pillars of self-management, right? It's everybody's free and everybody's responsible, and we believe that at the core, right? And that creates resilient organizations because everybody's responsible and becomes a sensor, right, of the organization and helps steer the organization. So it all becomes very organic, right, in the way it grows and it evolves. So what are some of the practices and structures and processes we use to bring some of these values to life, right? So as I talked about before, self-managed teams. So teams that elect their representatives, right? And they represent them in different forums. We like a lot the consent decision-making approach, which is a way of deciding that comes from sociocracy, and also holocracy use a lot this way of deciding, which is integrative. And there's no losers and winners. And there's no need for everybody to agree, but it still is consulting with everyone and looking for, is is this okay? Or is there a major risk? Is this safe enough for now? Is this good enough for now? So very much also as well with this agile mindset, right? Where we don't need to look at the perfect solution. We need to look at something that's good enough to start. And it's not too risky for the organization. And also a lot of structure, because when you eliminate hierarchies, when you eliminate bosses, I mean, we don't eliminate them, we look for new roles for them. Of course, everybody stays in the organization, but you need to substitute the directiveness that comes from having a manager and a boss that tells you what to do with structure, right? And rhythm. So we are very intentional about the sort of meeting forums that we implement. So there's the practical forums where we look at capacity, where we look at workload, service, and priorities, right? And there's representatives of teams that go to that forum and make decisions about the everyday work. There's the forums that are more of governance and more about setting objectives, so a bit high level, where we look at, okay, how are we doing in terms of like our objectives, setting the budget, and also making decisions that have a financial impact. And again, groups elect representatives to represent them for those forums. And then a very clear rhythm, right? Where everybody knows when those forums occur, and if they need to show up at that meeting for something in particular, they are always welcome. And then, of course, there's the general assemblies that are also very important, so that we ensure everyone understands how the business is going and everybody's rowing in the same direction. And there's a few more. And those bring this vitality, this rhythm, right, to the organization. And here's where culture occurs, really, in the meeting rooms, right? So very, very important to have a healthy rhythm. Through salary balance, I talked about generosity before. So we do believe that you cannot have a healthy organization if the gap between who earns the most and the least is too large. Of course, what is a healthy gap depends a lot in the culture, and it varies a lot depending on where you are. So it's good that the organizations kind of reflect on what would be perceived as healthy, right? So none of us feel ashamed of what we are making because it's perceived as it's an okay gap, right? And also there's a significant attention that we give to profit share. So results above what the companies were making before these implementations are shared in 30% of the profits are shared amongst employees. And we are very transparent and clear on how that gets done. I mean, that's not like a revolutionary idea, because the profit share exists, bonus exists, but the problem is that they only go to a few, and the way in which they are attributed is very obscure. And now it's mathematical. It has to do with how much profit are we making, and everybody knows how much profit share they will be receiving depending on the result. Okay, it's also very important that we understand the financial performance of the business, and we spend a lot of time, and we have to repeat this many times, explaining the P&L to everyone. In those general meetings, we spend a lot of time. We have to spend a lot of time with the finance managers in terms of showing the information in a way that it's understandable and actionable for people. We tend to be quite we complicate finance, and we hide things, and there's weird things, you know, and like little surprises, and we try to open all of that up, right, and really make it as clear and understandable for everybody. And then we have to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, so that people understand how they are influencing the overall result, right? And that brings a lot of focus and a lot of alignment. So again, these to just kind of recaps, these are some of the practices: transparency, no hierarchy, self-managing teams, no privileges, no special parking lot places for those higher up, salary balance, no controls. We don't control people. We trust people. right? We know that they are responsible and trustworthy, so we don't control them, but we do measure and track everything, which is different than controlling, right? Because we wanna all understand how the business is doing, and we share the decision making through consent decision making. No layoffs in our transformations. We promise that nobody will get fired, and especially no one will get fired for economic reasons. And we always say that, I mean, if you are in a family that doesn't have enough food, you wouldn't just leave some people without food. You would just have smaller portions. And this is what we need to get comfortable with, right? If we had an austerity moment where we need to tighten the belt, we tighten a little bit the belt, but we don't just fire people because of economic reasons. And profit share. So how do we start, right? Well, first of all, these values that I was talking about need to be very understood, and the implications of implementing these values that I was just sharing with you need to be understood, and we need to feel deep alignment with the owners, because the owners of the business are the ones that can decide, yes, let's go for it, or no, I don't want to go for it, and they can stop it at any point, right? So we need to make sure that there's like a strong alignment, and that they're not going to get scared and want to pull back after the first issue, right, that we encounter. So they cannot be skeptical about it. They cannot be too desperate that they just want to do anything without realizing what they're getting into, because they'll be happy that we are saving them from a financial issue or a problem in their business, but then as soon as it gets a bit healthy, they'll want to regain control and go back to their old practices. So we need to look for owners to whom this idea resonates, but they don't know how to implement it, and they feel illuminated, right, when they see that it's actually possible. Then we actually talk to everyone in the organization, and we actually perform a diagnostic, which is very qualitative. I mean, we throw some measures there, but just to satisfy the traditional way of thinking. But mostly we want to get to meet the people. We want to understand how that culture is in the organization, right? And that gets us to some focus areas, that gets us some recommendations on where are the biggest pains, right, in the company. And we actually talk to everyone, and there's a lot of power on talking to everyone. Get a lot of insights from that. And then one big differentiator that I would encourage anyone, all of you that are working on coaching and facilitating and change, introducing change, is that everybody needs to agree that they want to do this. It's not enough that the boss wants to do it. It's not enough that the manager wants to do it, but the teams, the whole organization needs to want to do it. So we do spend time showing to them what it would be like, sharing with them these principles, these values, these typical practices, right? So that they know what they're getting into, and then we ask them to vote. And only if 80% or more of the organization votes yes, we go for it. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it, even if an owner wants us to do it, because we know this change is so profound that we wouldn't succeed if we had too much resistance, right? So we need the whole organization to want to do it. Normally, people want to go for it, but there's been some cases where actually they don't feel the need. They feel it's too risky, too destabilizing, and they don't feel the need, right? So then they're not ready for this, and we have to respect that. Also, just talk a little bit about NER Group before we open it up for questions, so potentially a bit of an exercise. All these companies that have been doing transformations along the years have started, some of them, not all, but some of them have started to form an association called the NER Group, so New Style of Relations Group. So they all share this new approach, this new operating system, new way of relating, and they've joined forces. So this is kind of their purpose, right? Take care of ourselves, learn and evolve, committed to people and society. So that's what unites them, and this new organization style, and also this commitment to the planet and to society. They have they look at not just the economic sustainability of the businesses, but they also apply what we call Orbico, which is like another lens, which is the social sustainability lens and also the environmental sustainability lens, right? And so kind of similar to what B Corps or Economy for the Common Good do. And they also have a combined social responsibility agenda. Everybody contributes 5% of the profits to this common budget, and then they perform joint initiatives, right, in this social or corporate responsibility arena. But as well, which is something interesting, they also formed a savings bank, or let's say a fund for supporting each other, so that they don't have to go to the bank, and they can actually get money from that fund if they needed it to invest, to face an issue, a problem. So it's kind of like they have their internal lending system. It's also very interesting how they've also been able to negotiate conditions with suppliers, but also with banks, which is quite unusual, to be able to negotiate conditions for the whole group with banks. So even the small ones get the conditions of the large ones when it comes to finance conditions with banks. All right, so that's the end of our presentation. So that will give some time for questions. And I was wondering if we could do a little, if we could do breakouts and have, before we do the Q&A with everyone, is there a possibility to do a bit of breakouts and ask the groups to answer a question for us?
Yes, sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
how many groups do we need?
I mean, if we could put about four
We are
people
17
per
people.
group.
Okay.
So we can do 6 groups.
6 groups.
Yeah.
All right.
And the question here is, what do you think is and you'll have this Menti screen. So what what I'd like you to do is, when you go in your groups, rate this, and you can then each group can vote for all these 6 practices. So
Dania, I'm sorry, but I think there is something wrong. I would like to ask my co-hosts whether they can see the breakout rooms on the menu.
Yes, and I will do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Burak.
We can give 10 minutes for this exercise, okay? And so what we ask each group, for each group, that they vote for these 6 practices, what do they think in terms of impact versus effort, right? How difficult and how much positive impact each of these practices that I was sharing with you is for the overall transition or change to this new paradigm. And then also, you could also take an opportunity in each group to discuss and see which questions you have, because that might help you as well answer some already within the group, and make sure that the most pressing questions, the ones that are common for all, are the ones that flow up and come up when you come back from your breakthroughs, breakouts. All right.
Okay.
All
yes,
right.
we have 10 minutes.
Dunya, are we going to, Dunya, are we going to answer the questions individually or as a group come to a consensus? Just
I don't care.
individually, because
it doesn't matter. I suggest you discuss it and then you answer after, because I think from the discussion that will inform each of you, but you can answer individually. You don't need to reach consensus. That's too boring.
okay.
Dania, 5 minutes is enough?
Maybe, yeah, okay. I was saying 10, but if we want to give more time for the questions, yeah, let's do 5
Sure.
minutes. All right, so it seems that the one that drives the most impact is total transparency. Yeah, and it seems that it's one of the ones that also you all think it's hardest to implement. Then there's like 3 ties here for impact: collaborative decision making, no controls over people, and no bosses. That you also think drives a lot of positive impact, and no bosses seems to be the hardest of all to implement. And then, of course, salary equilibrium and no layoffs for economic reasons. It's probably the easiest to implement. And they seem to all bring quite positive impact, so that's good. And actually, I think it's quite true. They're all difficult to implement. Because we are so used to not applying this, and we believe that you need a bit of everything. It's almost like you need this recipe that has enough ingredients, right, for it to work. If you take out too many things, oh, not this, not that, then it no longer is what it's supposed to be, and you no longer have that trust from the teams. So this is like the right recipe for the magic potion to actually work. All right, so I'll stop sharing, and now the rest of the session is questions. I don't know how you want to bring them on.
Okay, actually we have many questions on Slido link and also on chat. So let me start. The first one is, the question is, how do you link culture, purpose, meaning for the organization? Culture, purpose, and meaning.
Javi, you want to start or you want me to start?
You do it. You do it.
We actually don't focus so much on purpose at first. Our initial purpose is to support the company transform to this new paradigm using those values that's the purpose, right? Because we know that once we are there and once we get the organization to be there, then this evolutionary purpose can start happening, but only when we're operating in this new paradigm. Otherwise, if we start focusing on purpose first, we are focusing on it from a lower level of evolution, if you see what I'm saying. So we look at first bringing the starting point to this new way of operating, and then that's kind of when things start. And we do have strategic meetings. We have that don't happen every day, of course, that they happen every 2-3 years. So the first one would happen maybe the second year after we've done an initial implementation. And then we start talking about a collective purpose where we're all contributing to it, and also some strategic thoughts, directions, right, that we think makes sense.
Okay, thanks.
I stopped hearing. I don't know if
Yes, me too.
I think we have lost Gezin.
Very convenient, right?
Sure, I can
Like
continue.
the person that was speaking.
Went to the birthday party.
Murphy's Law.
Birthday party.
Okay,
Yeah,
I can
exactly.
continue with the next question.
Yeah.
I think it's Özmen's question. Gezin. Okay, it's Özmen's question. How do you understand whether the owners align with the principles or not? Rarely people disagree with trust and transparency on paper.
Okay, let's see. As Dunia was explaining before, we really present the value to all the organization, the values that we are going to be using, what kind of criteria we are going to be using, and they vote. So they have in front the possibility to say, we don't want this kind of organization, we don't want this kind of operative system. And as she was saying before, we need almost 80% of the people to vote yes. So we have been doing 100 transformation, but probably we have been doing 130 general meetings with different organizations, and in 30 of them, we didn't go ahead because people didn't want to go with these ideas, because really we don't present as much as we are presenting to you today. We only present the values and what are the different ideas that we are going to be implementing. And then there is one previous thing is, if it's in the area close to where we are living and where we are implementing most of our transformation, we gave them the possibility of stop the work for a complete day, put them in a bus and send them to different organizations that already went through the cultural change. So they have the possibility without us to speak with other organizations, and they will understand some of the basic things is going to happen. And then when they come back, we present the ideas and they vote. So clearly, if they are not ready, we are not going to try, because we cannot change their mind. It's almost impossible to change a person. So they need to be open to do this. If they are not open, we don't continue. Different thing is we have 80% of the votes, we start working, and we start facing some problems, always, wherever they have in their minds. When we do the General Assembly, probably will change in the next 2, 3, 4 months. And then we will find people that probably they will not follow, or they will not match with what we are trying to do. But we live with this discrepancy. We don't want 100% of the support. We need people pushing and other people probably disagreeing.
So, Shabi, did you have any situation that the company changed its mind?
Yes,
on the way?
Yes. We have a situation. We do this very transparent, and we present a situation where the owners need to say yes, the people working in the company need to say yes, and we as people transforming the company, we need to say yes. And the contract is public for all of them, and we stand clearly that if one of the 3 parties doesn't feel this is going in the right direction, we can stop the transformation. So not all the times we have doing the vote and keep going, not on all the times we finish this transformation. In some of these cases, either the property, they didn't want, either the workers through unions, because we have a lot of unions here, which is in a normal hierarchical organization, you need unions to speak with the management. They decided not to keep going, and in some cases we decided not to keep going because we were clear that there were other problems that we were not going to be able to overcome. So yes, in some cases, not many, probably they will say, I don't know, probably 10 cases, 12 cases, we have not complete the process, okay? Because any of the 3 parties decided not to do. It's clear that this is not magic. We don't have a magic formula, and this is nothing that you drink and you can change this. This is people with a common goal and with a specific situation, market situation, product situation, service situation. So what we always say is that it's almost impossible that if you change to this operative system, you will go worse. But this does not mean that you always will get to the end of the journey. By the way, there is not end of the journey. The journey will be constantly changing. You need to evolve constantly. I am coming this morning to a 3 hours meeting of the NER group with all the general managers, coordinators, to review where we are in different phases, but where we want to be in the next years. And we need to change a lot of things, but we will do this with transparency, with consensus decisions, with salary balance, with all these ideas. Okay.
Can we jump into questions or we just need to write? Sorry for interrupting, Brock.
Normally we write in Slido, but as you asked, you can ask.
I'm sorry, because I'm coming from the a meeting, so I couldn't follow the Slido.
But you need to show us your face.
You don't want to see it while I'm at house, but okay, if you want, no problem.
Is the
I
price
just
for
didn't want
asking
to
your
show
question?
this, face. Okay. We are going through this transition, so I have one question. You were mentioning about all these changes, but the biggest change you're probably seeing is the creativeness of the people, right? The innovative side of the people. So in the businesses, even if they go in a wrong side or bad numbers, do you see that they are able to find innovative ways or creative ways as being self-managed? So you find the teams are a lot more innovative, a lot more creative to find their way out of any kind of crisis or any kind of issues?
Dunia?
Yeah, because you're tapping into that collective intelligence I was talking about, right? So what's so interesting is that you go into a meeting room and you think you know what the solution is, and after having the meeting, a new solution came up that is so much more beautiful than what any of us had thought at first, right? And everybody's feeling excited about it. So that's the sort of things that happen a lot. And it's when you get so excited, right? Because in traditional ways of, there's somebody who's very smart who comes up with the solution and the rest of the people execute. But here, we're all contributing to something that is actually much better than what each of us could have come up with individually.
And there is another thing. In a hierarchical organization, you have the boss who is going to be at the end saying yes or no to the decision. In a self-management team, you are not supposed to have bosses, so they need to be able to solve their problems. One of the biggest change here is to go from a general manager to a coordinator, to go from taking decisions to a situation where you don't take decisions. What you are going to be doing is you are going to try to keep alive a different operative system where they can take decisions and they can make mistakes. Because another big thing is in actual organization, making a mistake has, let's say, a negative impact. In an organization that is self-management, it's clear that you need to allow them to make mistakes. So they are going to be feeling more secure, more with a strong possibility to work together, and they will be more creative. We have been in many of the projects we started, I will say that a third of the projects, we started with companies that they were performing badly, financially speaking. They were coming to us not because they wanted to go to a self-management organization, because they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to solve their problem. And in these situations, we get the probably better results because they change the operative system and they really want to row together to get to the beach, okay? But you can see that the creative, when you don't have bosses, will jump up.
Okay, let's continue with another question. For the salary and sharing the profits, do you take personal performance into consideration?
No. It's clear that we change the operative system. Everything will be in teams. Nobody can be out of a team. And their teams, they will have the representative and they will have their goals. And when we do a salary balance, you will be in one of the levels. We have, we have a process to go from one level to another where you are in this level. And the evaluation will be a team evaluation. We will evaluate the teams. We don't have personal evaluation. Nevertheless, we have a situation where if somebody is not performing, the team will take care of this, but not for the salary. They will take care of this because they need the team to perform. And you don't want to have people in the teams that they are not doing their part. Okay.
And then to complement that, and for profit share, we look at the overall performance of the business, because it makes no sense that somebody like a salesperson is getting a huge commission when the company has been losing money. That makes no sense, right? So we need to all win, and then we share the wins. But in order to get this everyone focused on the overall working and being interested in the overall, as opposed to just their little part, then you need to make sure that those goals are, if we as an organization succeed. Otherwise, we haven't succeeded.
One thing about the salary balance is that nobody's going to go down with their salary. When we're going to be doing the salary balance, at least they are going to make whatever they were making before. Nobody's going to go down. Most of the people will go up, basically from top from down to top. We get more increase in the lower levels and probably less increase in the higher levels, but nobody's going to be punished to go down with the salary. And the other thing is, when we go to organizations, normally they will have bonus for the sales managers, bonus for the production manager. This kind of bonus, we do one thing clear, is we make this transparent. And if they are getting this bonus continuously in the last 3 years, this is part of the salary. They start from this point. So they don't lose whatever they have. This becomes part of their level. And then from there, we have a profit sharing with everyone.
We can't hear you, Gavin.
Okay, I'm sorry, really, I'm disconnected. Sorry for the inconvenience. Actually, we are done. It is 8 p.m., but may I ask one more question? This is a very good question.
Let's see if we have a good answer. Yes.
Yes, this is going to be the last question. Okay, what is the first thing you do if you see that the culture is very toxic and the psychological safety is really low? What's the first thing you do?
But okay, the question, we need to rephrase the question. As I told before, if the culture is very toxic and they don't want to keep going, we don't go. So we are not going to, if they don't want, because the culture is a result of their history. The culture is coming from what they have been doing the last 10 years, 20 years, 25 years. So this is a situation that is really in this position, but now they have the possibility, all the people working over there, not only the managers, to take a decision to say, all right, let's try a different thing. Let's do. And if they vote, even if the culture is toxic, as they have taken the decision and among all of them, 80, 90, we have some cases 100%. We get a little upset when we get 100%. This is normally not real. They say that they are following the rest. But then we have a very powerful tool, is they have taken the decision to change the culture. And then, as Dunia was explaining, the next thing that we do is we sit in the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending on how many people, we sit with each one of them and we have an interview, 40, 45 minutes with an scheme that we have, and we are able to detect what is going on, right? What is happening, what is going on. What is clear is we are not psychologists, Dunia, we are not
Psychologists.
Okay, we are not, we are cultural transformer. So if there is another different problems of the normal problems in an organization, we will find either some people that can help them, or we will take the decision that we are not able to change their minds, okay? So this is a collective decision, and that toxic culture is coming for the history. If they want to change, we can go and help them to change. If they don't want to change, we cannot change.
And it's a gradual evolution, right? I mean, there's always toxicity in this hierarchy, yeah? And there's always victims and people that, you know, will
Okay, I can read here, fight them all. fire them all. Somebody has one thing that I am very proud of this is we have not fired anyone from the year 2005. No one. If somebody has left the project, it's because they wanted to leave the project. And we have created a lot of security in projects because they know they cannot be fired. They maybe are not making the correct money, they are going through problems, but we create a different environment. Really, we create this. And this is one satisfaction of what we are doing.
And by implementing these things straight on, you start to build this trust, right? And people start to realize like, oh, this is different, right? So it's a gradual process. I mean, that trust gets built over time. It's not like from one day to another. Already the fact that they were involved in voting is a major step. That they're getting interviewed, we're talking to them, is a big step. That salaries are getting increased, that they're getting to see what's happening everywhere, and they test it. They test to see if it's true or not. And when they realize it's true, everything is being shared. It's truly transparent. It starts, you know, people start to open up and realize, oh my God, it is actually true. Pinch myself, yeah. So it's gradual. And in some cases, there will be frustrations and issues from the past that come up, and somehow, yeah, sometimes we need professional help to deal with them, coaches or conflict experts, right? Because they're too traumatic, right? And then we need some help.
Okay, really what you have done is amazing. We all appreciate your work. So best luck. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for participating today. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much. And our guests, thank you very much for joining the Restart Lab. Thanks a lot. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Shabi, Dunya.
Thank you.